Koppel, host of the Time for Coffee podcast, where you get firsthand career advice into the jobs and industries that interest you the most. And before we start today's show, I have a quick favor to ask you. If you haven't already, I'd be incredibly grateful if you'd give us a rating and a review on iTunes. And if you're like me, you need to do it now because you'll forget later and because it's the best way to help others who may be in search of career advice to find this free resource. So press pause if you haven't done it and do it right now. I'll wait. Thanks so much and enjoy today's show. Hey there, Java Junkies. Welcome back to another Espresso Shots episode of T4C. If you're interested in breaking into the world of financial services, then this is the episode for you because my next guest is a financial advisor with over 2 decades of experience working in a variety of financial roles, including in client portfolio management, real estate, and operations management. But before I introduce you to Dominique Henderson, I want to make sure you've signed up for the Java Junkies Journal. That's T4C's newsletter that features career advice and job-seeking tips, as well as unique insights into dozens of different industries from the professionals like Dominique who are actually working in them. Just head over to the Time for Coffee website at time4coffee.org, and the sign-up box is right there. Now, my finance-obsessed Frappuccino lovers, please grab your mug and take a chug of your favorite caffeinated brew, because it's time for another caffeinated career conversation. And my guest is Dominique Henderson, the founder of DJH Capital Management, the financial advisory firm he launched in 2016 in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. DJH Capital specializes in creating financial roadmaps for its clients to achieve better stability and comfort with money. DJH also specializes in cash flow management, tax shelters, and tax-free income investment programs. Dominique has been working in the financial industry since 1998, and he actually knew from a young age that this is what he wanted to do with his life. When he was in elementary school, Dominique wrote a financial mission statement. My brain is exploding here, which was to help people win their money. Those were his words, my friends. Dominique is also the founder of the Jumpstart Coaching Lab, which is working to change the face of financial services by equipping the financial professional of tomorrow to serve their ideal clientele. He also hosts a wonderful podcast called Conversations for Financial Professionals, where he digs into the next gen of financial advice. Dominique, welcome to Time for Coffee. Are you caffeinated and ready to go?
I am, Andrea. Good to see you again.
Hold up that mug because this is called branding, my friends.
You like it?
I like it. Now, I know you sent me one. I just can't remember off the top of my head what it says there on your mug.
Conversation for Finance. It's the name of the podcast.
Yeah. There you go. You see, this is how bad I am down. My mug isn't even branded. I do have a Time for Coffee mug, but I didn't bring it. You are the package.
I'm trying my best. I got to keep up with people like you.
Oh, please. Well, listen, one of many things that I admire about you, Dominique, is that you really know an industry that I know nothing about. Could you please give us a high-level view before we dive into our 10 espresso shots? What financial services includes?
No, this is going to be a great conversation. And I have to say, please call me Dom because it's going to shorten the interview probably by a third because I know all these syllables in my name tend to make interviews long. But I'll say this. Financial professionals, which run the gamut from coaches to advisors to therapists, I think there's a very simple way to say what we do, which is we help take people's limited time and limited money and spread them across unlimited choices. Now, whether that's you're wearing a coaching hat or a counseling hat or a planner hat or advisor hat or a therapist hat, I think you're pretty much doing the same thing for all those groups of people. So that's my definition of financial services.
Okay, fair enough. Now, why is it that I get the money piece, but how are you saving people time?
Well, this is a good example. I use this with all my prospects. I say, hey, there was a time in my life when I was much younger and less gray that I used to love to get out in the Texas heat and cut my own yard. So I actually know how to do it. Matter of fact, I got some of the equipment in my garage. But as I got older, I started to realize that a marginal hour of my time was worth a bit more than I pay my landscaping crew. And so therefore I start to say, well, I need to leverage this. So sometimes financial services is one of those where you have the capability, you have the knowledge, you have the aptitude, but you might want to outsource that so you can operate in your zone of genius, to borrow a Gay Hendricks saying, right? So I think we save people. I know I save my clients time, and I've heard it time and again, because if you think about a weekend of going through all your whatevers for hours and not really having the certainty that you did it the right way, all the stress and anxiety that may build versus working with a person like myself, that's saving you time.
That is an excellent way of describing it. And by the way, I learned how to cut my yard because when I was a kid, my parents sent me out there and I had to do it with the push mower. And it took me 5 hours because we lived on an acre and a half. What am I saying? An acre and a half. And it was a push mower with the clippings that would be caught in a bag. And I had to then bring that to empty it. So.
Oh, yeah. You were wishing for a brother or something.
I had a brother, but he was he was 6 years younger. So, it took a few years before he was old enough. There you go. Well, thanks so much for that overview. Let's get into the first espresso shot, which is what entry-level jobs, Dom, are available to young people who want to break into financial services?
No, great question. I think I have to bifurcate just a little bit because there is part of our industry that's very popularized. You see Fidelities and the Schwabs of the world. And so let's stay there. That's what most people are going to be familiar with. And so in that, you have practice building, which is bringing in clients, and then you have servicing those clients. There's a lot of jobs, like on all the job sites, recruiters hire for them all the time, that are on the practice building side. I don't necessarily think this is the best place for people new to the industry to land because there's a lot of, prospecting and gathering clients that take a little bit more than just product knowledge to be good at, right? You got to have some really good people skills and communication skills and all that kind of stuff. Some of the stuff that you develop later in life usually. But on the other side of that is the support of clients, right? So you think about these associate or junior advisor roles that allow you to kind of be a sponge or a fly on the wall, if you will, whatever analogy you like, to kind of see what goes on. What does a Dom do in a day, and hear those recommendations, sit on the client calls, take notes, go through plans, all that kind of stuff. So I would say the junior or associate advisor role is probably the most suited for somebody coming out of college or out of school.
Excellent. Thank you. What about a useful hard and soft skill, Dom, that you've looked for over the years in the young people that you've hired?
I think that, man, in 2021, I would answer this differently than I would even 10 years ago. But in 2021, I would say etiquette for digital media. That can mean a lot of things, but basically digital media is a platform that we now use. We used to use ads and billboards and all that kind of stuff. We still use some of that to a certain extent, but there's a lot of marketing, if you will, that goes on social platforms. And so understanding that etiquette, that's a skill set in itself. I've worked directly with people for my firm that don't have a finance background, but they're fluent in digital media. And so therefore they're an asset to me. So that's a skill I think, most financial professionals, aspiring financial professionals would be good to develop in this day and age. And I would say on the soft side, probably empathy, just to, wrap it up in a nutshell. Having the ability, maybe active listening would be a close second, if not first, just because there's such a nuance in the interplay between client and advisor, where they're telling you things that they want, that they may not need, that they may not be able to describe fully. And you're having to take this in and maybe break it down a couple levels, ask why a couple of times, that kind of thing. So the empathy skills and the active listening skills, very high.
Excellent. What about someone's major? Is it a deciding factor to get into the field of financial services? In other words, if they haven't, like you, majored in finance in school, is it a deal breaker?
Not as much. No, I would say no. Because, if we're keeping that same framework that I gave you about business building and then, bringing the clients in and then supporting the clients, on the second hand, maybe more so, right? Because there's financial planning programs nowadays, the CFP, the Certified Financial Planner designation, which is kind of the gold standard. There's about 90,000 of us. There are different curriculum, but there's a lot of third-party providers that allow you to go through them for the education, whether you came out of school with an engineering degree or a finance degree. So that's not really an obstacle as much as it were back in the day. So, and then we have the very, let's call them rainmaker, charismatic type that are, never met a stranger. Some of these people, I have these friends in my network that they haven't even gone to school, but they can just rent a room. They just have it. And so the educational barrier is pretty low. That's not to say once you get in, you don't need to do other things to add to your technical chops. It's just to say that as a barrier for entry, it's not really there.
What about grad school? And this is less so, maybe, for those who want to break into financial services, more so for somebody who wants to build their own business or make it to the C-suite. I know that you got your Master of Security Analysis and Portfolio Management and Finance at Creighton University.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you recommend? And if so, what type of advanced degree?
Yeah, I think so. Once you start thinking, and it can happen definitely earlier than this, but let's say the typical person comes out of school 22, 23 years old with their bachelor's and whatever, and they find themselves landed in a financial services job. I think if you stay generalist, what you're going to find out that in the next 2 or 3 years, you're going to want to dive into something, whether that's tax strategy or investment management or financial planning specifically, educational planning, retirement. There's so many different areas. And I think that's why you see there's more than, I think it's close to 100 now that the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority has of designations. Now, we're not going to get into all that because some of them are, kind of funky or wonky. But the point is you can start to get specific. And I think this is where a graduate degree helps, right? Because the technical aptitude, which you get exposed to, all these different things are really good for you when you're trying to go down a more narrow path to help people, because you're going to eventually figure out, okay, I like dealing with these type of clients with this type of subject matter versus this type of client and that type of subject matter. So to that point, I think, yes, it would be important at that point.
Great advice. What about life experiences, Dom? And by that, I mean the experiences that we have outside the classroom. It could be speaking other languages at home. It could be growing up one of 8 kids or being an only child. I don't know what that is. It could be playing team sports. What do you think are the best kind of life experiences that our young listeners who may still be in school should try to cultivate, should try to get, or may already have, that would be useful to them when they try to break into financial services?
Yeah, I would wholeheartedly say the list you just named is great. What I could add to that list is, and I've said this to my clients and I think my audiences before, is I think some of the best financial advice I've given has come out of me being a parent and being married to the same woman for 24 years. So there's a lot to say about life experience that's not found between the black and white of pages, right? Because here's the reality, and I've told this to advisors that I've mentored, is that CFP is great. It's never going to prepare you for the first phone call that you get from a client that had a spouse that's passed or that's about to divorce or is having some other, just lost their job. Like that's not in the black and white of those books, right? You can only live that. So I would embrace every aspect of your life, which means, and I think you talked about this on your platform, Andrea, is expose yourself to different things, right? Travel, learn another language, get around people, get uncomfortable, go to Toastmasters. All these things I think can be woven into the, let's call it the mosaic of who you become when you show up in financial services.
Excellent. So hopefully this is an easy question. What is the best part for you, Dom, of being in this industry, of being in financial services?
Oh, that's easy. That's seeing people win with their money, seeing good advice take hold, and people actually reaping the benefits of that.
And the flip side, and we can say you have now run your own firm for going on 6 years. What what is the aspect of being the sole provider, of being the name on the masthead that sucks the most?
I would say just it's almost similar, right? It's seeing people come to me that has gotten bad advice and they've reaped the fruit of that. Because the interesting about this, and I've had the pleasure of having to hit the reset button a couple times in life. And the thing about some circumstances when you get bad advice is that people always focus on the money that you lose. But time is our greatest asset. And bad advice steals your time. And so to me, that's the part that sucks the most, is when people have, the greatest of intentions, get some bad advice, and they come to me a little later stage in life and they don't have as much time. And I can't do anything about that. So that would probably suck the most for me, because I love to help everybody, but sometimes the time limits or puts a constraint on that.
Yeah, that actuarial table.
Yeah.
Can't change that. So 3 final espresso shots. What is the best career advice you've ever gotten, Dom?
Probably to work hard. Like, hard work out, it trumps a lot of things, really. I mean, I'm just trying to think of an industry in which hard work does not suit the person, and I can't think of it. I know this notion about working smarter, not harder, and I'm all for that, but that's not in the absence of hard work. It's just to say that as you're working hard, find ways to work smarter. It's not a replacement for hard work.
What movies, if any, or Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, Apple TV streaming shows, or books do you think accurately depict this profession?
Oh, accurately? Oh, wow. Accurately, that's a stretch, because everything gets Hollywooded once it gets on TV. But there are a couple of good books. I'm a fan of Michael Lewis's work. With The Big Short is one. I think Boomerang is another. So if anybody Googles Michael Lewis, he gave a pretty good, at least in the books, he gave a pretty good depiction of how things were going on, especially during the Great Recession and the housing crisis back in 2007 through 2009. So that's a really good treatise, in my opinion, of as far as I'm pretty sure there's other stuff. I'm not a big TV person, but you can see there's plenty of books back there. I don't want to bore the audience with a lot of them, but I think, Andrew, this is an interesting question, because there's so many different facets of financial services that I think you have to look at it in that light too. But so I'll give one more book recommendation, which is Principles by Ray Dalio, who ran the largest hedge fund ever. Right? You can only be with them if you had $1 billion or more. So they very exclusive. But he has some really, really great timeless insights in the book.
Excellent. Okay, we'll include links to those books in show notes. Thanks so much. Final espresso shot. What would Java junkies be surprised to learn about financial services?
This may seem counterintuitive because of all the analysis that goes into creating a financial plan and all the statistics and Monte Carlo analysis and blah, blah, blah. But I think it's rarely the smartest person in the room. I think it's really the great financial advisors that I know of. They're just really great humans, great communicators, good at building relationships, good at the empathetic stuff that I talked about earlier. And so it's not as much as what people, and granted, I know you got to go, in some instances, you got to go to school, you got to do all that stuff. I get it. But to me, that's more table stakes. That's just kind of like what you have to do. But when you're talking about the elite, the 1% of the 1%, these people are really high IQ, but also really high EQ. And so that's what I would say.
Dominique is the founder of the Jumpstart Coaching Lab, which is working to change the face of the financial services industry. by equipping the financial professional of tomorrow to serve their ideal client. He also hosts a wonderful podcast that you've got to subscribe to and tune into, entitled Conversations for Financial Professionals, where he digs into the next generation of financial advice. You can also follow him on LinkedIn, which is how Dom and I met.
Yeah.
Dom, I want to thank you so much for making time for coffee today with me and the T4C community. This was terrific.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to this latest episode of T4C. And if you're interested in learning more about my coaching services for confused college students and recent grads, feel free to check out the Time for Coffee website under the coaching tab at time4coffee.org, or text me at 202-236-5712. That's 202-236-5712.